Meeting to order for the invocation. Rise. Heavenly Father, thank you for another wonderful day. Thank you very much for letting us gather in this brand new building that will impact lives and the community. Please be with us as we discuss the college's business today, and be with all faculty, administration, and all St. Pete College's students. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. President.
Good morning. Welcome to all. Where is Tyrone Clinton? Tyrone, take 2 minutes. Welcome. Tyrone is the Associate Provost here at the Midtown campus. All of the good work, most of the good work that we've done here is a reflection of his great leadership. Tyrone, why don't you just a word of welcome?
Well, thank you. I wanted to welcome everybody here to this grand and fantastic building that the college has approved and built for us. We are really excited about where we are, and we've established all the staff that we need. We have all kinds of dynamic programs going on. We have our Women on the Way program. We have our GED program proposed and upcoming. I'd like to welcome everybody, and if anybody is interested and you want a tour at the end of this event, we'll be outside and ready to walk you around and see all the fantastic artwork that we have around the building. But if you weren't here on August 1st, it was a sight to behold. It was a fantastic event that we had that day. We had upwards of 15 to 2,000 people here that day. I'm really, really excited. The students are excited. I'm excited. The staff are excited. Thanks.
Thanks, Tyrone.
Thank you.
Dr. Clinton's done a wonderful job. Can I ask Judy Frock to come forward, please? There she is. My.
Yes.
Data Systems Clearwater, 1973. We go back together here, don't we?
Yeah, we're young.
Okay. Good morning, all. So many good friends. Judith Frock began her career in data systems on the Clearwater campus of St. Petersburg College in 1973. And whereas Judy proved to be an efficient and knowledgeable staff member and was therefore transferred to the continuing ed department in 1976, where she handled registration and payroll for 20,000 students each semester. She is instrumental in putting the entire non-credit program into the college computer system. And whereas Judy joined the instructional television service department on the St. Petersburg campus in the late 1980s, and was in charge of putting together the monthly broadcast schedule for the college's cable TV channel. And whereas Judy moved to the Seminole campus in 1998 and was part of the transition from the telecourse program to the e-campus program, in 2008 she took over the course management of the Seminole campus, which included being a member of the PeopleSoft training team. And whereas Judy, for 42 years, has had a tremendous impact on her colleagues due to her vast knowledge of the various information systems, her congenial spirit, and her helpfulness to others, she will be missed. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the St. Petersburg College Board of Trustees and the total college community hereby recognize and appreciate the outstanding contributions to the college by Judith Frock and extend to her our best wishes for enjoyment throughout the years ahead. This resolution adopted and approved by the Board of Trustees the 15th day of September 2015. Hear, hear. Okay. Congratulations. Great career. You just follow all the college developments, okay? Good. Very good. Thanks. A quick note.
I just want to say that over the past 42 years, I have had a lot of colleagues who became friends, who morphed right into family. If I've been able to give back even a fraction of what's been given to me, I feel really blessed. It's been amazing, and I thank you.
Thanks very much. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Terry Bird began his career as a criminal justice in-service coordinator at St. Petersburg College's Southeastern Public Safety Institute on April 22, 1991. He arrived after retiring as a lieutenant with the Clearwater Police Department, and whereas Terry became the director of the program in 2000, supervising the continuing education training for law enforcement officers, the program grew under his direction, including the addition of workforce development courses, and whereas Terry, a dedicated and knowledgeable professional, has served the community as vice chairman of the Clearwater Housing Authority from 1993 to 2013. He served on the board of Head Start of Pinellas County. He has also served on Pinellas County Urban League's Black on Black Crime Task Force. In 2012, he became a charter member of the St. Petersburg Midtown Rotary Club. And whereas Terry, a published author and scholar, is a St. Petersburg College graduate with advanced degrees from the University of South Florida. An honorable and ethical man, he has helped many students achieve their dream of a college education. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the St. Petersburg College Board of Trustees and the total college community hereby recognize and appreciate the outstanding contributions to the college by Terry Bird and extend to him our best wishes for enjoyment throughout the years ahead. Said resolution adopted and approved by the Board of Trustees, St. Petersburg College, this 15th day of September 2015. Hear, hear.
Just like to say I've had a long career with St. Petersburg College, starting back in 1967 as a student athlete. Then for 30 years as the spouse of an employee, my wife was here. Then 24 years as an employee here at St. Petersburg College. So I think I'm really was privileged to have that opportunity. I thank everyone for your support. And St. Pete College always be near and dear in my heart. So everybody, wish you well.
We have a little bit of unfinished business from the August 1st ceremony. I would like to ask Dr. Goliath Davis III to step up. On behalf of, for those who may not have been here, we took time at the ceremony on that day to honor a small number of community people whose contribution and support, visible and behind the scenes, really caused this building to be available. One of those people is Goliath Davis. On behalf of St. Petersburg College and its Board of Trustees, it is my pleasure to present the following honorary degree. Honorary Bachelor of Arts in College and Community Services Award to Dr. Goliath Davis III. Former Deputy Mayor Davis has advocated for Midtown and its residents since joining the city staff in 1973 as a public safety agent in the police department. After serving several years as police chief in 1991, he was promoted to deputy mayor in charge of a task force focused on Midtown. In that position, he envisioned and crafted a plan for the community that included educational opportunities, economic stability, job opportunities, and housing improvements. St. Petersburg College was part of that plan. Throughout the planning and construction of this building, he was helpful and encouraging. We knew he was someone we could count on for advice and support, for he has always had the best interests of this community in his heart. For your support of St. Petersburg College and the Midtown community of St. Petersburg, it is my pleasure to present you with an honorary Bachelor of Arts in College and Community Services with all rights and privileges hereunto appertaining. Congratulations.
Good morning. To the board chair, as well as the members of the board and the president. I stand before you today to say thank you so very much for this, this award. I was privileged to lead a team that spearheaded this movement and I accept this on their behalf. And it's very nice to know that St. Pete College has always been a very great partner to the city of St. Petersburg, and specifically to the Midtown community. I recall when our good president came on board, the first thing that we did was to walk 22nd Street and talk about this particular vision that we realize here today. We started as a small achievement center just to the north of us, and this was always in the plans. And it's nice to know that when we had to talk the previous president and maintaining a presence on 22nd because the downtown college had opened, that we were able to prevail. And more importantly, the demand didn't diminish, it increased. And as the good doctor said, this particular building is not Go Davis's dream. We had community-based input forums where the members who live and reside in this community indicated that education was important to them and they wanted an opportunity to enhance their skills. So on their behalf, I accept this as well. Thank you so very much.
I think we
Next on agenda?
have some other visitors. Oh, all right. Let's do a few introductions. Oh, yes, Braulio is here. Braulio, just bring me the check, okay?
Then we are ready to go. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Dr. Law, I'm so pleased to announce this morning that the Florida College System Foundation will be awarding St. Petersburg College over $51,000 in scholarships. This gift is made possible through the generous contributions of 3 outstanding partners. We will receive over $14,000 from Florida Blue for scholarships in nursing and the allied health programs. We'll receive $4,800 from Bank of America for first-generation scholarships, and over $32,000 from the Helios Education Foundation, also for first-generation scholarships. The Helios Foundation began their partnership in 2007, and since that time, they have contributed over $191,000 for scholarships to St. Petersburg College. We're so very pleased with that partnership, and I'm pleased this morning to introduce to you Mr. Braulio Colon from the Helios Foundation. He is Vice President for Post-Secondary Completion. He will say a few words, followed by longtime trustee of the Florida College System Foundation and our own legal counsel, Mr. Joe Lang. Following that, we'll have a photo op. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the, Dr. Law, members of the board, on behalf of Helios Education Foundation, it's our pleasure to provide support for your students who are pursuing success in post-secondary education. Our foundation is committed to creating opportunities for individuals in Florida and Arizona to succeed in post-secondary education, and this gift represents our initial gift in Florida upon moving to the state of Florida and setting up our offices across the Bay in Tampa. And this year we're also celebrating 10 years of impactful work across the state, and we're just thrilled that the $32,000 represented in scholarships today is just a small token of what we hoped to be able to achieve in our next 10 years of work and in partnership. And so we appreciate the partnership with St. Petersburg College and the Florida College System Foundation, and we look forward to continuing our work together down the road.
Sure.
Just individual.
Yeah.
Members of the board, I'd like to take just a second. I'm very proud of the time that I spent on the College Foundation. Over $1 million, or just under $1 million this year will be raised by that foundation and spread among the great 28. I think that's fantastic. And I guess I'm pleased to announce that this will be my last year on the foundation. I'm very pleased, however, to advise that our own Bob Fine is going to take my seat. And so, Bob.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, is Mr. Cologne gone?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All
He
right.
stepped out.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to joining the Florida College System Foundation. Unfortunately, I haven't attended my first meeting yet. It was canceled because of Hurricane Erica. Your last meeting, so looking forward to it. A lot of good work done.
They appear to be very cautious people.
Yes, very cautious.
Catherine Kennedy has
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, board members. My name is Catherine Kennedy, and this morning it is my honor to introduce the new interim director for the honors program, Mr. Earl Freitas. Earl is well known throughout the community and the college. He earned his master's degree from University of South Florida and began his career at St. Petersburg College a little over 10 years ago. As a faculty member, he demonstrated his online expertise, taught honors courses, took students abroad, and led the Model UN Nations team. Administratively, Earl has served as FGO president, was founding co-chair of CETL, and was the faculty chair for the QEP. His plans for this transitional period include consolidation, collaboration, and cultivation for the honors program. Mr. Earl Freitas.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I just want to thank the president and the board for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. President, any more?
Yeah, there's one or two more. Mr. Chairman, Dr. Frank Biafra. Frank, would you stand up and come forward? Do we have his... Frank, step forward if you would, Frank. Frank is a colleague. He is, as you see, professor and dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at University of South Florida, St. Pete. Frank and I serve on several civic boards together. About 3 or 4 months ago, he came to see me and said he had been selected as a fellow for the American Council on Education, a year-long internship. Let me stop to say this is very prestigious. 40 are awarded nationwide through our highest level, the American Council on Education. And the purpose is to give him a chance to shadow a college president of his choice, to get a sense of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And after working through how it might work best for all of us, Frank did sign on to be to use St. Petersburg College as his internship site. The agreement is he has access to everything I have access to, and he has been sitting in with my weekly meetings and all of that. Frank, say a few words, introduce yourself.
Sure. Members of the board, President Law, thank you very much. It's a tremendous honor to spend this next year shadowing President Law and members of his leadership team. I have been a resident of St. Petersburg for 8 years, serving as Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at USF St. Petersburg for that time. And for the next year, I will be serving as an ACE Fellow, as Dr. Law just mentioned, giving me an opportunity to shadow leadership in motion, something that I've been excited to do for a long time. A couple of years ago, I met Dr. Law. We were, a new chancellor was installed at the university, and we were going through a new strategic plan. And when we were about done with the strategic plan, President Law raised his hand, and then he stood up and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, you do recognize that your best customer at USF St. Petersburg is St. Pete College, and that most of your students that come to USF St. Petersburg have come through St. Pete College."
Yeah.
And it was that moment that the light bulb went on, and I said, that's the man that I want to work with one day, to continue the collaboration between our two fine institutions and to see how we can create even greater partnerships in the future. So thank you for this honor.
Dr.
I
Law?
appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Great question. I'm glad to see that Dr. Law is hanging out with Gators now. He's getting smarter by the minute.
I said the good, the bad, and the ugly.
So again, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Anything else, sir?
No, sir, that's it.
Well, this is our first meeting after July 1st, so we have some housekeeping to do. First, let's elect a new chair. Section 1001.61 of the Florida statutes requires that each year at the first regular meeting after July 1, the College Board of Trustees shall organize by electing a chair whose duty it shall be to preside at all meetings, to call special meetings of the board, to attest to actions of the board, and the board shall also elect the vice chair to act as chair during the absence or disability of the chair. Pursuant to this requirement, I now open the floor for nominations for the chair of the Board of Trustees for the 2015-16 fiscal year.
Mr. Chair, I would nominate, ooh, I'm so
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I would nominate Dale Oliver.
Is there a second to the nomination?
Second.
If there are no further nominations, nomination closed. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Chair.
Yeah, that's right. Bob's like, I'm out of here.
Look at that.
Mr.
The script is right there.
Mr. New Chair.
didn't tell you that part.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah. Don't even worry about moving your name tag.
Perfect.
Mr. Chair, I know that our second order of business to elect the vice chair. I'd like to make a motion.
Please make it.
I'd like to make the motion that Laura Lee Westheim be our vice chair for this coming year.
Second.
Any other? All right, we'll close. If there are no further nominations, I declare the nominations closed and call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Laura Lee, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to switch seats just for fun?
No, but thank you, though. You notice they placed me by the door.
Just to continue on, Rule 6H 23-1.04 of the Rules of St. Petersburg College require that the Board of Trustees establish a schedule at its annual organizational meeting for its regular meetings for the college fiscal year, including day, time, and location. I propose the following schedule for the fiscal year of 2015-16, which is in your binder. And that is currently the third Tuesday of each month, starting at 9 a.m. at the St. Petersburg Epicenter at 13805 58th Street North in Largo.
We're at Midtown, Allstate.
Do we have that on the?
So
I
it
move.
is-
We do.
I
Mr.
move-
Chair,
I'm sorry, go
I'll
ahead.
make a motion. Mr. Chair, based on agenda item 2C3, which is a memorandum dated September 15th, 2015, with all the proposed dates and locations of all the meetings scheduled, I would make a motion that we approve those.
Yeah,
Second?
second. No, I'm good. I got it right here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so be it. We will adopt the memorandum with the, pretty much the same standard meeting schedule that we have today. And on the memo, you can see the locations for each of those individual meetings.
Perfect. We got actually Clearwater and Tarpon, and Allstate on there as well. Or South Campus.
Let's see, the last thing under the housekeeping, I guess, is Mr. Fine said, is the appointment or the recommitment of board members to the support organizations at St. Pete College. Currently today, Mr. Fine sits on the SPC Foundation Board, I sit on the Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions Board, and Devron Gibbons on the Lipa Ratner Museum of Art Board. Anybody, what do we do as far as the change? Do we adopt those or do we keep those?
Mr. Chair, I would move that unless I hear otherwise from the folks who are serving on those boards, I would make a motion to continue their service.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All, Mr. Fine, myself, and Mr. Gibbons will remain on the same support boards. All right. The next item is review and approval of the minutes from the last board meeting of June 16th. Any motion on the minutes?
So moved.
Second? Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Is the comments section, there?
The comments.
You knew it this week.
Yeah, I got, you know,
It's okay.
not as experienced as Mr. Fine was at this. All right, we did skip the comments section. We'll go back to that. Comments first to the board chair, and I'll just say very briefly, I look forward to this opportunity and look forward to serving the college in this capacity. Appreciate the confidence and, again, the opportunity to do this. Any comments from any of the board members?
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And also thank you for serving UMS West High. Congratulations on being elected today. Just very quickly, Dr. Davis is gone, but I wanted to thank him for all of his support of the college over the years. And Dr. Law did an excellent job of describing that, and it really was a community effort to make sure this facility was here. But I can tell you that it would not have happened without Mr. Davis going around and doing the charrettes that he did throughout the entire community and what was important to this community. So I want to thank him. I know he's gone, but I really want to thank him for coming today and being a part of St. Petersburg College's family. Terry Bird is a great guy who has been a part of this college for a long time. I hope that he and his wife enjoy retirement. Just a great individual, person who was a mentor to myself and so many other African-American males in this community, from Clearwater to St. Petersburg. Whatever you asked him to do, he was just driving up and down US 19 when it wasn't fun to help people. So
It's still not fun.
yeah.
Thank you.
Earl Freitas, congratulations. Thank you, Dr. Law. He's a great person to pick. He's been very instrumental in this college and a lot of things. Seen him come from one place to another one, seeing a lot of growth. And thank you, Dr. Freitas, for accepting that interim role. Braulio Colon, I thought Braulio was staying with us. Is he gone? Oh, anyway, I'm glad to see I'm not the only person that started lobbying when I didn't have all the gray hair. So Braulio's been around for a very long time and a good friend to the state of Florida. And last but not least, Dr. Biafora, we look forward to working with you. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Gibbons. Any other comments from board members? Ms. Westing.
We had some flair in the St. Petersburg or the Tampa Bay Times, and about education in this community. And one of the things that came out of it was that I decided to volunteer down at Maxwell Elementary on Friday mornings. I will tell you, it is painless. You send your name in. It's not hard. There's no fingerprints. They don't ask you the hard, tough questions. But I realize that none of us really have a whole lot of free time. But I would suggest that if you do have an hour or 2 hours that you can give to any schools in Pinellas County. And I get that you all are all educators as it is, and you give every day to students. But with that said, there are some schools in this community that could use some extra attention, a little love and support. And I think they could use some love and support from folks other than just within this community. So I will be at Maxim Elementary in, her first name is Jody, I think Miss Jody Meyer's class on Friday from 9:30 to 11:30 every Friday, if you want to join me.
Thank you. Any other board member comments? Mr. President?
I have really three quick items. First of all, I want to once again salute, where's Rick Gibson? Didn't I see him come in? He was here. He's in the overflow room. Rick is the chair of our Career Employees Advisory Committee. But once again, for the opening week on campus, all of our buildings and grounds, people, everybody who's on campus and is in a position to help students wore these shirts for the initial week. And I will tell you, they like to do it. Many of them can tell you anecdotes of that they did in fact help people who were trying to find their way to class. It's not hard to spot them on the first day of courses, but they pride themselves on doing that. I'm very proud of that group, and it makes a big difference. We all feel the lift. Secondly, I have a letter from the Veterans Administration. They did an audit, as they are wont to do, of all the work. We received, for all practical purposes, a perfectly clean audit. I think they found one record that was not exactly the way it should be, of thousands and thousands and thousands of records. And I only bring it up because, first of all, Jeff Kavanaugh is doing a great job, and it made a big difference to our veterans to put in, you won't believe this, but somebody in the paperwork office, somebody in the admissions and records office who handles veteran students' paperwork. And it relieved the backlog. The students don't end up with the burden. They don't get stopped out. And we did it literally perfectly. I'm very proud of Jeff and our VA. You as a board should feel good when we ask you for a position and it makes a difference. You should feel good about that. Thirdly, tonight at Oldsmar at 6 o'clock, Jim Connolly has been working for a good long period of time. We will have a brief ceremony. The city of Oldsmar is giving access to their community space. We will be offering a number of workforce-related courses up there over a period of time. We're going to do it on a pretty enthusiastic pilot and then sort of recalibrate it after the first of the year. But it's a nice opportunity, and Jim has grown it and developed it. We're in good shape. I do want to give you a heads up. I was supposed to do it last week. Brian Miles, the college attorney, will be slotting into a leadership role for Doug Duncan, starting immediately. We've already got him in harness. Doug rearranged some things as Jamel left, so we have somebody to handle more of the budget stuff. Brian will handle the operations management, give good guidance to the leadership and HR pieces. A very talented professional who will make a big difference in the college. So Brian, thank you for your service for that. Mr. Chairman, that is it. We have a lot of work to do, and trust me, I adjust the staff up to get through it quickly.
Mr. Chair, I got one question for Dr. Law. I heard that there was some movement and we're done with acquisitions.
Done with acquisitions, okay? No. No, Devron is, if you can believe it, we have not yet signed the paperwork for the gymnasium and the Achievement Center. Brian sent me a note yesterday. Brian, our last handshake with those guys was a month ago, 3 weeks ago. There are no details left to review. We simply can't get the paperwork from them. So, Devron,
does he get to move on to his new job before he gets that done?
he better make that deal, because if he's going to have his star on the housing authority, Brian's done a great job putting it together, and Joe Lang has been instrumental. It's just different. They work for a bureaucracy. It's just tough. You cut them some slack, but a year and a half worth of slack is plenty. We think we have it all resolved.
Okay.
All right, since we moved ahead and reviewed and approved the minutes, monthly reports, first from Board Attorney, Ms. Gardner.
Good morning. I don't have a report.
Thank you. From our General Counsel, Joe, anything?
Well, I'd just like to thank the board for the honorary degree that you all gave me when this building opened. I think that was just fantastic, and it's now on my wall in a very cherished position. So
Thanks.
Well deserved.
All right, move into the presentations. First in strategic priorities, a fall 2015 enrollment update. Dr. Coraggio and Dr. Renard.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, President Law. This morning, Dr. Coraggio and I would like to give you a brief update on our fall enrollment, much of which you'll see is trending down. I'll share with you that our sister institutions across the state are feeling the same pain. For example, Polk is down 5%. I spoke to a colleague at Hillsborough Community College yesterday. Their head count is down 5%, and their FTE is down 3.5%. Seminole State's down 8%, so there's a lot of that going around. This is our enrollment head count, and this data is through Friday, September 11th. Head count, we are down 3.4%. You see we have 32,356 credit-seeking students enrolled this fall. And our student semester hours is down 2.9%.
This is a breakout of our SSH, or student semester hours, as we look across the two divisions of the college. We're going to look at lower division and upper division and overall. For lower division, you'll see we're down 3.8%. Our big increases, which have continued to be in the trend for the last few years, have been in the upper division, and there we're up 3.5%. Overall at the college, we're down 2.9%. This is looking at some of the specific upper divisions. The highest that we have in terms of increase year over year is in computer and information technology. If you remember last spring, I believe they were up over 50%. We saw good growth over the summer, and we're continuing to see good growth in that program at 40%. As we look at fall enrollment, a lot of it's attributable to some of the new sub-plans that we've added there in areas of data analytics, one of those areas that's passionate to my heart, and in the areas of software programming. Veterinary tech follows up at 18%, paralegal is up 12.5%, and then we see 6% for business administration and public safety. The one you'll notice there at the bottom that typically we see moderate growth in is in the area of education. You'll see we see a decrease of 6.4%. A lot of that's based on the knowledge test and the change they've had. It's had some dramatic lower pass rates across the state as they've changed the curriculum for that test. And that general knowledge test is a requirement. As students enter the College of Ed, they're required to pass that portion of their teacher certification exam before they can even enter the curriculum. And again, that's across the state. So there's some remediation going on there. There's some work going on there for students that aren't initially passing the GTA, and some things the College of Ed are doing to work with those students.
So would we expect to see that increase for spring?
Yeah, I'm expecting not to see a decrease of 6.4%. Hopefully we can get to the position where we can start to flatten that out and move back into a positive trend.
How often is the test offered? Is it something where they can take it online at any time, or is it something that...
It's offered regularly. I don't have the specifics on the amount of time it's offered.
But not like the bar twice a year or something like that?
It's
more than
more
that?
frequently.
Okay.
Our dean is working very hard there to offer some remediation for those students. And I think some of it's a shock. I mean, when you have a new testing company change that dramatically at some point in time, we have a big gap right away as folks get used to the curriculum. So I think that's a transitional thing we're going to see. But I would expect improvement on that as we get into spring and go forward.
Thank you.
Jesse, what about the nursing at 0? Is that pretty is that just a pretty steady program year over year?
We were seeing some growth there in the previous terms, so it's flat right now. We saw a lot more growth as we looked at last fall and last spring. So we'll get what the program is.
So it just seems to be a lot of demand in that area, and it just, if it's not growing, I mean, you read in the paper, and I know I sit on one of the local hospital boards, and there's always a need in the healthcare and nursing particular, but just to see that number at 0 is kind of interesting to me.
We'll get with the College of Nursing.
I would have to agree with that because I get a bunch of folks asking me all the time about trying to get into our nursing program. That doesn't mean they qualify, but let me just say that.
Right. Yeah, and this is the BSN, this is the
Right. Yeah, but yeah.
Lower division, we see some flat enrollment, but usually that's because we're full.
Okay.
Well, when did the
baccalaureate management overlay on top of the general RN program?
Mr. Chair, when did the express courses start already?
This week.
They started this week. Will that help with enrollment normally, or no?
What you're basically seeing as of the 11th would include
enrollment
for express. We have a second 8 weeks, and we might see a blip up related to that as we go forward. We're fairly full at this point, but there might be some opportunities to open additional courses for 8 weeks, but you're not going to see a big dramatic change from this point going forward.
Thanks.
And then this is the Midtown enrollment. We've shared some of the large growth we've had in the Midtown as we move from building to building. They're actually up 46% overall, so fairly large growth there. We did notice a downturn at our downtown campus. The net difference between the two, when we generally think of it as a downtown, Midtown campus together as an individual entity, we're basically looking at a combined growth of about 13 students between the two.
You said how much? 13%?
13
students
between the two.
Wait,
Okay,
did
this-
I not, wait, hold on.
Yes.
I missed that.
Sure.
So even with the new building, we're up 13 students?
Between the two buildings. Yeah, go back. So we're up quite a bit for this particular facility.
Understood.
The classroom facility that we had before.
But
when
they've
you
just
add-
shifted.
That's right.
It just seemed, they've
Migration.
Yeah, I
balanced
believe-
themselves out.
I
since
believe there is
butchered
some
that word.
migration as impacted because
Migration.
they're so close together. I also believe there's growth here. So if you notice around the rest of the college, we're seeing decreases in enrollment. And
I
there's
gotcha.
Not as much baccalaureate enrollment that are going to be in these two.
I got you.
uh,
So we may be
campuses.
seeing baccalaureate decrease at, say, at the downtown campus,
Well,
but we're seeing
a lower
growth here.
division decrease that we're seeing across the college
I gotcha.
downtown. That's offset by a little bit of growth that we're seeing here, and then there's the migration component as well.
I gotcha.
So I think both of those come into play here.
Okay.
You know, why we want this facility to continue to grow. We had that huge opening, the 1,500 to 2,000 students here. That was a big day. I think we're going to see some of that come, you know, as we get into the spring and go forward, as some of those folks go through the application process.
Just, maybe this will help Jesse, Dr. Coraggio. How many new students that were not at downtown are here?
I
They've
can
never-
get that number for
Yeah,
you.
that might help us. And then, how many new students at downtown have never been there? That would help us tremendously to look and see who's new total at
I can
both
get you
places.
Both of those numbers.
Okay, this slide looks at number of new students, not by campus, but continuing students, new students, and readmitted students. So a continuing student is a student who's been enrolled in the last 1 year. New is someone new to SPC, and you see we're down 10.3% in new students.
Wow.
So that includes transfer students, our FTIC, our first time in college students. It also includes a little bit of new dual enrolled students that are still in high school. And then our readmit students is down 4.5%. This is a slice by ethnicity, and you can see with the exception of Hispanic students, we're down in all categories. And by age, you see the largest decline is in our 36 and older. Those students also tend to be our transfer students, which would tend to show the decline in new students. We're down 6.5% there.
When we were reviewing this yesterday, just observationally, notice that the 36 and older cohort is exactly the same size as the 19 to 21-year-old cohort. And I think we probably want to keep that in mind as we market ourselves, as we talk about that. I mean, you know, we still always think of college being the 19 to 21-year-olds, and the reality is we have as many 36 and older here. So we have to be aware of who we are.
A little bit of good news. This shows the yield from Pinellas County Public High Schools. In 2014, they had 5,414 graduates, a little bit of an increase in 2015. But our yield, in terms of those graduates that matriculated with us, the subsequent fall has increased from 33.2 to 34.5%. I think that's a testimony to our efforts in the high schools and trying to go after that segment.
This is a breakdown by gender. You'll see, if we look across those, we're seeing general decreases in both, and you know, statistically speaking, it's about the same, about 3.5% decreases for both groups. This is a focus looking at enrollment status. We'll see the decrease we're actually seeing is in part-time students. We've been noticing an increase. When we were getting the increased gains, it was a lot in the full-time population. Here we see full-time was flat, and our decreases were in the part-time student area. Next slide, please. And we can see that data when we look at the credit hours. About a 1.6% decrease in those just taking a few classes in the 1 to 6 credit hour range. When we look at 7 to to 11 credit hours in terms of a load. We'll see that's where the biggest decrease was, about 8.6% of students in that range, about 3/4 time. And then 12 or more is considered full-time. You can see what we had on the prior slide, it's about flat.
Okay, this looks at ethnicity for our first time in college population. You see total first time in college, we're down 3.9%. That's last year we were about 3,700. This year about 35, a little over 3,500 first time in college students. Unfortunately, our African American black population is down significantly at 11%. Whites down 4%. Total down 4%. This is from Mike Bennett from Financial Aid, looking at just the magnitude of how much aid has been awarded for the year. You see almost 17,000 students, more than half of our student population, for almost $130 million in aid. The largest buckets there in Pell with $53 million, student loans at $63 million. So in summary, seeing a decrease almost across the board, 3.4% in headcount and almost 3% in student semester hours. I do see an increase in our baccalaureate enrollment, and I've seen a decrease in our new students of 10.3%. Midtown enrollment is up, 4.7% increase in Pinellas County high school graduates that matriculated here. White students down 4.7%, Hispanic students up 6.1%, a decrease in the older student segment of 6.5%, and a 5% decline in part-time students. Questions?
See the numbers reflected here, the certificate programs we have?
Yes.
That's all in there?
It's all included, yeah.
When you tease that out, do you see any significant trends in the certificate programs?
Our number of enrollments and graduations is increasing in our certificate programs. So we are seeing that over time. Even within this, we're still seeing those increases.
Is it any more difficult to get loan or scholarship money at this point?
For students to acquire that?
Right. I mean, is that, can we pin it on that, I guess?
Yeah,
is what
I'm not
asking.
aware of any barriers.
I'm scratching.
Yeah, and there's areas.
No, as a matter of fact, we got an email from Mike Bennett that there's a change for next year where they're going to be looking at prior year financial data, which is going to make it easier for applicants on the FAFSA.
And they can do it earlier. They won't have to wait typically till later on in
Right.
spring term to do it. They'll actually be able to do it prior to the calendar year.
I'm not so sure Mike wasn't on or led that national task force on that, but a really savvy move. Instead of using your most recent tax form, you can go back one more year. They almost never change. And that can get the process working much, much faster. We can start packaging students right after the first of the year. We don't have to wait for people to file their taxes in April.
Or October.
Or October. So that will help. We haven't fully dissected all of it. Some of it's the economics. Take your choice. The economy's either going up or down, but people are finding work. Secondly, I think we have some complicity. We have been putting some pressure on students in that 7 to 12 range to not take more courses than they can pass. I mean, a lot of our effort is to be sure students don't get in over their head. Taking 1 or 2 courses is a pretty standard pattern, but now choosing between 3 or 4 courses, can you pass all of those? So a lot of our work is doing that, and in fact, the financial aid is when students when they don't succeed, they have to make an individual appeal to keep their financial aid. So they're being a little more savvy about not taking more courses than they can pass. I think we're seeing some of that. Some of it is just, we just can't break through on getting more students. You see some upward trend with the high school, but when we looked at the high school, the feature there is they're flat in graduation rates. They had 5,400 last year. They have 5,400 this year. I mean, at some point, I don't think and we're getting 5% of it. What are we going to get? 5.5%? It's just not the promised land. We better go after those mid-career adults.
The trends have declined.
Yeah.
Not that their graduation rates are impacted, but the fact there's less students as they're moving through the pipeline, so they're actually spending it down, more of a downturn. There's a number of graduates.
Any trends online? How many students? Is
Continues
it-
to increase.
It continues to
Yeah,
increase?
continues to
I
increase.
mean, significant,
I
mild,
mean, it's
what?
an upward trend line if you look term over term, year over year. I mean, students are migrating towards an online environment. And in fact, we're seeing lower enrollment in our evening classes as a result. Students are migrating from a typical student that would come take classes in the evening is now taking classes online.
And most of the students, just hybrid students that are taking a couple online classes and doing that?
Yeah, it's something like just over half of our students take at least one online class.
Okay.
And it's a little over a third now that are taking all online.
You know off the top of your head, but you know the number of students that are trying to get through 100% online?
Well, I know that it's a little over a third of our current enrollments that are just taking online
Just
classes.
taking online?
Purely online.
Let's bring back a report. I reviewed at some length yesterday the whole transition that we're doing with the online, and it's a very good report. Why don't we just put that on as a topic, Mr. Chairman, next month and dissect it a little bit, okay?
Do they still have to qualify in some way? I know we had talked about qualifying to take total online, like all of your classes online.
Well,
Have we done that yet,
again,
or
I
it's
want to
just no?
spread that out. We've got some programs that were designed to be 100% online, okay? So that's one. I still have to see for myself the students who used to be on-campus students who are now online students, and whether they're fully online. I don't meet many of them. Most we meet are splitting their breath. They're doing something.
No, but I mean, remember I think we had a discussion a while ago about, I mean, Ms. Westheim brought up a lot of information about students having to take some type of remediation or some type, I don't want to say remediation.
No.
Some type of course or practice course to be able to register for an online course to prove that they were ready for online. Did we do that yet or no?
Yeah, somebody help me out. We actually do have a.
Okay.
Yeah.
A tutorial of some sort.
It's called
That's a better word.
What's it called?
Susan.
Yes, we have a pilot running this fall of online student readiness.
Okay.
With Bill Levins, and we'll be able to analyze that in a couple weeks.
Okay, I remember we discussed it, and I just
No,
wanted
it's
to know if we
helpful,
had
and
started it
faculty
or
want
not.
that to happen.
Thank you.
I think the only thing I'd like to see is, and you guys will bring it to us, but I would like to see the success rates. Because if the concept is, or if one of the concepts is that we're putting pressure on the 7 to 11 credit hour students to fish or cut bait, and they're cutting bait, then what I'd like to think is that the ones that we've got in there now are going to be more successful. That you're not going to be taking 5 classes and not do well at 2. You're going to be, we've kept the ones that are taking 3 and are succeeding at 3. So I'd like to think that our success rate with that group would increase.
Stay tuned. We have a lot more discussion this morning on completion and success, okay? And it's not all good news. So we've got our sleeves rolled up, and we'll. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up on Quality Enhancement Plan update, Ms. Haber, Ms. Robertson, and Ms. Crawford.
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
Mr. Chairman, and congratulations, member of the board, and Dr. Law. I'm here today. My name is Sabrina Crawford. I'm the Executive Director of Institutional Effectiveness and Research, and I'm come to you today with my accreditation liaison hat on, along with my leadership team for our Quality Enhancement Plan.
Hi, my name is Heather Robertson, and I am the Academic Director for the Center of Excellence in Teaching and Learning.
And Jennifer Haber. I teach at the Tarpon Springs campus. I'm in the Department of Communications and Fine Arts, and I am the new faculty chair for the QEP, or the Quality Enhancement Plan.
Okay, if you remember, maybe just 3 years ago, we submitted our 5th-year interim report, and we received absolutely no recommendations, which was the highest possible praise that we could get. And of course, you know, SACS has us doing this on a continuous cycle, and we're just nearing now our 10-year deep dive look at all of our possible areas and how we're actually documenting our quality and continuous improvement over time. This report's going to be submitted in the March of 2017, and it actually has 3 concurrent timelines that we want to make you aware of. The first one is the compliance report itself. These are those 84 standards where we have members from across the college looking at each one, being able to write about them and then document them. And we have probably over 100 different members from different departments and faculty members working on these standards right now. The other one is the Quality Enhancement Plan, which my teammates will talk about in just a minute. And finally, we have one new section of what SACS expects us to do, which is our Administrative Unit Assessment. very similar to the way our academic programs look at it on an annual basis as how well each of our administrative units are doing, our academic units are doing. So too now do our administrative units need to look at something, find their metrics, see how well they're doing, and then document them on an annual basis to do an improvement plan.
I am here to talk a little bit about the QEP, or the Quality Enhancement Plan. I'm very excited to be a part of this team. I've officially been a part for 25 days, so I am excited for the next 3 years, though. I want to talk just about a couple quick things. First of all, I want you to understand that it is a very carefully designed plan of action. We have already started the process and have already done a lot in the last 25 days, and this will continue over the next 3 years. We want this to be a collaborative process. It is extremely important that faculty, full-time adjuncts, administrators, the executive team, you, all of us get together to find a good topic and to move forward with this topic and to make sure that we are highlighting what SPC can do, because we are a unique institution, and it's not just important for SACS, but it's also important for us as a college as well. So we collaboratively are going to find a topic and then follow through with the topic over the next couple of years. The topic will be a well-defined topic that focuses on student learning. If people ask me, and I've gotten a lot of people ask me recently why you wanted to be a part of the QEP, and my reason was because student learning is important. And I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of something that can move us forward. So we're going to find a great topic for St. Petersburg College that either is about student learning or the environment in which students learn. The ultimate goal for this is to create a document which will capture what we have done. We have gotten the topic, we've implemented, and then we're going to capture that in that QEP document. That is going to show what we have all come up with, and it's going to highlight us for the institution, as well as give this document to SACS in July 2017. So again, I'm very excited to serve in this capacity, and I look forward to the next 3 years.
So I get to tell you guys about what we're going to do this fall and what we have been doing already. In addition to working on the 3 accreditation approaches that Sabrina's talking about, and Jennifer then spoke about the QEP, we have an oversight process for the QEP, which includes leadership oversight, which includes the executive team, also our faculty governance organization, our CEDL, which is Center of Excellence in Teaching and Learning, as the oversight committee. And then we also have the Quality Enhancement Committee, which Jennifer is the lead of. Starting back in July, we actually attended the SACS Institute this summer, started working on coming up with some ideas, met with college leadership, met with our CEDL board, and then also members of our faculty governance organization, and started our topic selection process. We also had a collaborative lab this past Friday on September 11th. We had faculty, administrators, all kinds of stakeholders around the institution to come together and come up with some ideas that found sort of what we were looking for to serve our most at-need students. Actually, tomorrow, we're going to be presenting to our executive team the summary of the collaborative labs. Then we're going to start our open forums in September and October, where we will be inviting our college family to come and sit with the QEP team and the QEC topic selection committee each week to talk about these various topics. The Quality Enhancement Committee will also be working on, or the topic selection committee portion of that, will be working on researching our topics and looking at what other institutions are doing to see if we can improve upon that, or if that need fits what we have here at SPC. We are hoping that we will be able to narrow it down to at least 2 topics sometime in November, and then have a final decision in December. As far as the BOT's role in the oversight for our topic selection, we are bringing this to you today to kind of give you an overview of what's happening, and then we're going to come back in November and report back as far as our status on our current topics. We're hoping that in November we can come back with about 2 or 3 topics that we would be going forward with. Then in December, we would finalize the topic in our BOT workshop and hopefully be able to announce that to our college community so that we can get started on the actual writing of the plan starting in January of 2016. Questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, thank you for these are this has its own dynamic, and thank you for the leadership on this. Just to give you a flavor, when we did this last time, the quality enhancement plan was the enhancement of critical thinking across the entire curriculum. So I love this part. Going through the 84 standards, let me share with you, we're going to get reaccredited, okay? Now, after you put all the energy in, though, there ought to be a lift in the general activities that the college is doing. So finding a topic that you can really spend some time digging in on a periodic basis is what this is all about. So they're doing a great job to say, what really makes a difference here? Where should we take all we do and focus it? So thank you. We're going to keep the board involved. Certainly I'm involved, but it's in very capable hands. Okay.
Thank you. All right, next, budget and finance. First topic, fiscal year 2014-15 year-end financial report. Dr. Duncan.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Let me start with some old news and just catch you up on where we ended the year back on June 30th. You will see that we ended the year at about 97% of our budgeted revenue. Now, the one I highlighted down there at the bottom, you see that we did not spend any of our stabilization reserve, which we don't intend to do. That is only there if we need it for something. The biggest difference you see is up in the tuition. We started out strong in the fall and then dropped off in the spring and in the summer. So we ended up there with 96% of our revenue. Our industry certifications almost doubled. On the expense side, you can see in the personnel costs, we were at about 101%. Most of that is attributable to, we gave the non-recurring increase in December, and that'll bump up in adjunct supplemental costs. On the expense side, what really allowed us to balance the budget, we keep a fairly large contingency, and if you look at that bottom line, that contingency is held in other current expense. And so it was about $2.8 million that we did not spend. And so that offset, so we ended up with also spending 97% of our budgeted expense and basically ended up balanced. So we're in good shape. Just as far as the reserves for each of our major funds, our general operating, when we ended the year, had $19.7 million. Our restricted funds, about $7 million. About half of that is student activity fees, and then other balances on various grants and contracts. Our auxiliary is healthy. We use that to fund a pretty good portion, a chunk of our general operating budget each year, and we ended with a reserve of about $6.5 million there. We ended up with facilities with our capital funds about $19 million. Now, a lot of that is carried forward for the Clearwater Library, for various other projects that have already been budgeted. So that's where we ended. We're in good shape, and then we'll pick up with the budget and where we landed. Next. Any questions?
Any questions? You're good. Thanks, Doug. Second item, performance funding update. Again, Dr. Carraggia.
Good morning again.
Morning.
I want to kind of give you a quick update on where we are with performance funding and what was decided by the legislature as we entered this current fiscal year. So I'm going to take a little time. I apologize in advance. There's a lot of details I'll be sharing, but I invite you to ask questions as we go along. So I know we brought back to the board periodic times on where we were with performance funding discussion, but there was as many as 9 measures at any given point in time. And really, 11th hour decision, the final model that was approved through the legislative process, took us down to 4 items. And we're going to talk in detail about those 4 metrics. They are job placement, continuing education, completion rates, retention rates, and entry-level wages. From the college perspective, there's a few of those we did really, really well out, and there's some that we didn't do as well. There were a few others that we did well out that were actually dropped from the model. So we'll talk about some of the logistics to that in just a second. Before we get into those specific items, I want to talk a little bit about how they score each of the metrics. There's actually 2 components to the scoring. There's what they call an excellence benchmark and an improvement benchmark. Excellent rates you against your peers, so it's basically how you're rank ordered against other institutions. The improvement benchmark is really rating you against yourself. So how hard have you improved in the cohort of interest versus prior cohorts? You're awarded points based on the higher of the two. So it is conceivably possible for an institution to have an lower overall score, but yet have shown improvement over a period of time and get awarded more points. So I just wanted to make that point as we go on. The first metric is job placement continuing education. I want you to take careful notice of the weight component. These were all intended originally to be weighted at 10 points, and two of the metrics that we're going to talk about were actually discounted down. This is the first of the two. So it was 7.5 points given instead of 10. We're going to look at another metric that was giving 3 as a maximum instead of 10 points. The reasons for this is many schools in the Panhandle had issues acquiring some of the job placement data for those students that went to work right across the board of the state, so Alabama and Georgia. As a result, a decision was made to discount both of these metrics that are related to workforce. The cohort for this group is the summer, fall, spring graduates, and you can see from the graph up there, we're comparing those two ways. One, we're comparing it based on employment, and for employment statistics, we're looking at the quarter that includes October, November, December of the following year. And for continuing education, meaning that they go on to a university to continue their education, we're actually looking at the whole entire following year after graduation. You'll see the source information there. Next measure we have is completion rates. The way this model is developed, it does give the full 10 points. It excludes transfers, so if students actually transfer on to another institution, they're actually pulled from both the numerator and the denominator of this model. And it also pulls out allowable exclusions. That's really just a handful of students. Those are students who may have passed away while they were students at the institution, or who were actually called to active military service. So it's really a handful of students at the end of the day. For the two cohorts, we have a lower division cohort and upper division cohort. For the lower division cohort, we're looking at first-time, full-time lower division students enrolling at the beginning of the fall term. I want to note specifically this metric for completion, and I'll be honest, it's one the college didn't do as well on as we'll look at the values that come up, is only focused on full-time students. And as we looked at some of the data a little while ago, they're not a big element within our student body. In fact, in general, they represent about 5.5% of an opening fall enrollment. But those are the students that are focused on for this particular cohort. And they actually made some changes since this was announced as final, and they do accept summer students as well if they were here in the summer and then continue their enrollment onto the fall. There's an upper division cohort that they did put together. But the upper division cohort also only looks at full-time upper division students. That's a small portion of our enrollment. To give you a perspective, our entire nursing program that we looked at a little while ago, the BSN program, every one of those students is part-time. And many of our baccalaureate students are part-time. And the rationale is they're working while they're getting their baccalaureate degree. The time frame, there's two elements to the time frame. There's 150% of the time and 200% of the time. And the way that works is if we're, it's going to be different for each certificate or degree type, but if we're talking about a 2-year degree, 150% of the time would be over a 3-year period. So did they graduate within 3 years from the time they started? 200% of the time would be did they graduate in 4 years since they started. So they weight 2/3 to the 150% of the time and 200% to the 1/3 of the time. That's completion rates. Retention rates. Retention rates, they do look at part-time students. It's first-time full-time and first-time part-time that are enrolled in the fall. First-time full-time and first-time part-time upper division students. It's basically saying, did you enroll in the fall and were you also there the following fall? So that's how they do their comparison. It doesn't matter if you were there in between or not. It's that were you there in the fall and then you enrolled the following fall. What they did is they artificially broke this down into 2 categories, combining all the full-time in one half weight and the part-time in another half weight, and you can see their source data there. That also excludes allowable exemptions and transfer students. And then entry-level wages, which is actually one the college did the best on. I think we were actually the best in the entire state on this one. This was discounted down to 3 points from 10 points. This also looks at graduates from fall, summer, fall, spring year, and the year after they graduated, and then it's focused again at that second quarter of the year, the October, November, December timeframe. Now, how this model works is they look at all of our graduates and they focus on what was their entry-level salary for those graduates during that time period. Then they compare it to all entry-level students within your local workforce area. So this is done by the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. So the good news is we were the best in the state when it came to a comparison with the amount of money our graduates made compared to that amount of money typical people entering the workforce made. So that's the 4 metrics. This is the cohort information. And focus a little bit when we talk about the cohort years, because I think it's important when we talk about next year's rankings. So for job placement continuing education, the cohort is 2012, 13 graduates, and they're comparing them till the next year, which would be 13, 14. So this year's would be the next 14, 15, would be the comparison. For completion, we have the 150% to 200%, but notice again the year. So for the 150%, the cohort they're focusing on are those that were full-time, first time in college in fall of 2010. That was a little bit of a while ago. For those in the 200% rate, they're looking at fall 2009 students who entered at that time period. And again, for this year's, all they're going to do is add 1 more year onto that model. And then for their retention rates, they're looking at 12-13 to 13-14. Again, this year's one's going to be 13-14 to 14-15. And then for the entry-level wages, it's looking at the 12-13 students against the 13 Department of Economic Opportunity. Now, what becomes ever apparent is if I do this year's model, all I'm going to do is take these years and put them up another year. Well, everything's done. So when this report was released, next year's report could have been released at the same time. The college could do absolutely nothing in between, and it's going to become an issue as we look at some of the schools that actually fell down into the bottom of the model. So, the entire performance funding pool of money is $40 million. The way they did this is they took $20 million off of the base. So they took each institution based on the amount of money they would have gotten in the normal state funding model and weighted it against $20 million that we would have received looking at last year's budget compared to this year's budget. And they pulled it out and held it in escrow.
Which is what percentage of it?
It's a very small percentage. It was $1,200,000 for us. Our portion of the $20 million. So they went in, they said the base is, however, $600 million bucks. We're going to take $20 million out. Your part is $1.2
The base is
million.
620 million. We're
I don't
taking
know
out 20,
what's.
which I'm not a math person, so, but that's
Yeah,
small.
Doug was saying it's less than 5%.
Yeah, it's a small percentage, but $1.2 million is a bunch of money too.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so we had to ante $1.2 million to get in the game.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And then the second portion, the additional $20 million, was new money. So together they put money at risk, which was $20 million, and then new money is at $20 million. So $40 million is what's in front. Okay? They broke the colleges into 3 groups: gold, silver, bronze. In the gold category, it was the 7 colleges with the highest point total. In the silver, it was those colleges with 1 standard deviation below the mean, and the bronze colleges were those that fell more than the 1 standard deviation below. If you were gold, you got your base money restored, you got the new performance funding, and you got any money that's left over at the end of the day, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. If you were silver, you got to keep your base funding, and you got your proportion of the performance dollars. If you're bronze, and I'll give you the hint, the kicker, we ended up in the silver. Be honest with you, just barely in the silver, but we ended up in the silver category. So we did get to retain our base funding, and we did get our portion of performance funding. If you're in bronze, what happened to the bronze folks is they lost their performance funding. Their performance funding went up to the gold folks to split based on how the money was distributed. Your base funding, you potentially could have gotten back. And the only way you get it back is you create a plan. You go to the State Board of Education. If they approve your plan, they give you half of it back. A year later, at the end of the fiscal year, you go back to them. If you show improvement on what the metrics you wanted to look at, you get the other half back. If you lose either portion, it goes up to the gold folks. So this is kind of a rich get richer, poor get poorer kind of model, because the folks that probably need the money the most are the ones that are getting their budgets cut. This is the ranking. We ended up 22 out of 28. We were 1 away from falling in the bronze category. And as the state created these various models, again, it was 9 metrics through I think the first 4 or 5 iterations of this model, we progressively drop down the scale each time, and this is the lowest that we ended up with these 4 metrics. We had some metrics we did very well that actually ended up not being included in the model. Those are our specific values. Job placement, continuing education, we were 3.75 out of 7.5. Completion rates, we tied for the lowest in the state. We tied with Miami-Dade, and we both received a 1 out of 10. Retention rate, 7 out of 10. Entry-level wages, we were 3 out of 3. As I mentioned, and Doug will share, we got our 1.2 million restored from our base budget and new funds in the amount of 1.2 million.
Dr. Coraggio?
Yes.
But wasn't this a moving target? Like, they started out somewhere else, and then they moved somewhere else on this, and then by the time all this shook out, the 1 out of 10, we couldn't even figure out why we were 1 out of 10.
Let me jump in because I was present when it was happening. When the council president signed off with the 9 metrics, depending on a little bit of tweaking, we were as high as 11th.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
We were well into the top half. When they started throwing metrics over the board, they end up keeping one that's really a problem for us. If the entry-level wages, which then got discounted from 10 to 3, if they would have left that at 10, we would have moved up 6 places in the ranking. Okay, so yes, the inside baseball, now let me say 2 things. The inside baseball is what bit us at the end. But I'm not at all comfortable with any metric of student performance where we have the lowest score in the state. I simply need to say the completion rate. Now,
But is that a true number, Dr. Law?
well, it is, but let's give ourselves a little credit. It's outdated. As luck would have it, we were in my office yesterday reviewing the college experience plan. The video that I made 4 years ago used the very same numbers to focus on why we need this plan. So 2009 was the year that they're looking at, and all of our work with the student experience comes after that. Okay, now, we've got to live through that, though, because it's already baked in for next year. So our goal is to lobby hard to get that 3 out of 3 made 10 out of 10. Okay, so we've got to play the inside baseball till our improvements get us out of the
Which is
ditch.
important because the governor keeps pushing to work.
I can't wait to stand with him and say, Governor,
so this is last.
high-wage state. We had the highest wages of any college, and they discounted the metric.
Not to mention the reason people go to college is to get
Yeah,
a job,
yeah,
more money. I mean,
I wish whining about the inside baseball in Tallahassee is a it's not very rewarding. No, but geez,
And there could have been other ways potentially to address that.
But it seems like to me, I back to my original question, this was a moving target. That it was not etched in stone from the beginning, and then we weighed out where we weighed out. It was just like it moved it around to meet some of the needs of other colleges to make sure they got funded.
They were 30 days after the end of the legislative session before they showed us our numbers. Talk about a moving target and behind closed doors because they didn't want to listen to us complain about the 3 out of 3 and all that sort of stuff. I get it that it's hard to do and everybody picks their best numbers and all of that, but good grief, when you wake up and entry-level wages is the lowest value that the system has, not us.
Yeah.
Okay, so that all of that's good. We're going to stay with it. I want you to know that after analyzing some things, I have 40 interviews scheduled over the next 3 or 4 weeks. About 2/3 of them are one-on-one meetings with faculty whose success rates were at the lowest end for last year. And I want to be very straightforward about this. We have the numbers. I'm trying to get to understand what causes that. It's easy to say this should change. I need to hear from the people on the front lines what would help you change this, okay? So we're going to do that. About 1/3, we sorted the file and said, tell me which faculty members touch the most students who actually graduate. And a third then are going to be faculty who I think can say, here's what I think is a success piece. I'm using that as a proxy for what do you do that causes students to get to graduation? What do you think your little piece of the pie is? And then I'll report back to everybody what the 40 interviews give us. I'm anxious to hear the differences in the dialogue and the commonalities in the dialogue. We've got the numbers, but that doesn't, it's not qualitative. That's quantitative. Jesse, how close to the end are we here? Okay.
Here's our next steps. What we want to do is recreate and validate the state data. Again, as Dr. Law mentioned, what we're trying to do is get an understanding of what is in the metrics. And then we can see proactively what we can do to improve those areas. At this point, to be quite honest, we haven't been able to recreate the data. And we've had difficulty getting from the state the specifics for us to enable us to do that. We've got a lot of percentages, but it's hard for us to replicate the raw ends to really understand who's in the population, what the cohorts are. We want to develop short-term and long-term strategies to address this. The board was gracious enough to approve, as we went through the strategic budget request, 2 positions to focus on full-time, first-time in college students and to do some special case management. I mean, that's an area now we need to focus on, because even though that's not a huge percentage of our population, it's certainly something we're being evaluated on. So we need to think about putting resources in that to help those students be more successful. And the other interesting thing, a large percent of the students who start, we were talking just a while ago about enrollment, how many classes students take. Well, a large percentage of our students, as much as 50% a couple of years ago, who enter as full-time students, become part-time by the second semester. So they're counted in the cohort because they're originally designated as full-time students, but by the second semester, they're now taking a part-time course load. Well, they're never going to finish in 150% of the time, and they may not finish in 200% of the time. So that's where we think some counseling and stuff can help both on the front end with full-time students, and then as they enter the program to help them be successful. Auto graduation will help with some of our completion numbers. What we're doing is we're going to begin to mailing out certificates when students meet the requirements for the certificate on an embedded AS program. So many of our certificates are embedded, you get them along the way, but students often don't apply to graduate as they're progressing. We believe this will help student success by giving them encouragement as they receive those credentials, as well as it'll help our numbers as we go through the process. And then the last one is continuing to develop a stronger articulation program with USF. We've had a couple really good meetings with the USF system, both the Tampa campus and the St. Pete campus. Here as of lately, the last one I think was last month. And they're creating what they call a FUSE program. And what it enables is actually a single application process. A student would say, I'm going to go to SPC and then I'm going to go on to USF. They'll apply in this application process. Both SPC, I mean, we have open door admissions, but USF will actually accept them as well. They'll be awarded a USF ID as kind of the vision of the model. They'll be entitled to USF resources and career resources, research resources, even go to football games, and they'll spend their first 2 years with us, finishing their AA degree before they transfer on. And then if they meet all the requirements, they'll be granted acceptance into USF's upper division program. So we're really excited about this. We think this is a strong program for student success, and it's really our long-term vision of even wanting to start with 9th and 10th graders and giving them a complete pathway through their post-secondary education experience.
Could they do those classes on our campuses? Some of them?
Well, one of the things we had talked about is actually having some of their advisors sit on our campuses. And somebody could be on Monday at Clearwater and Tuesday at Seminole and actually move from campus to campus, and students can have those conversations, because it's often been difficult for us to find some of the nuances with some of the specifics as students get advice and guidance as they move through the program. This would really help with that relationship as well.
All right. Okay. I have questions? I do. Our total budget, $2.4 million is what percentage of our total budget? Less than 2%. Okay, so I'm minimal. So we need to put in perspective that this is a game. It's a Tallahassee game, and we need to not beat we are going to learn, but we are not going to beat ourselves up over 2% of our budget. With that said, just from my edification and gratification, I would like to see what our completion rates are. We only took full-time, which is stupid since we're a state college, but moving on. I would like to see what our completion rates would be if we looked at part-time. Not in the 150%, not in the 200%. Give us some buffer room.
Yeah.
Pick a reasonable number for a part-time student to fulfill, to complete. What I don't want this to do is to, while I absolutely agree that we need to take a look at these things because we have to live within what we got, we need to put in perspective, when we're burning capital up in Tallahassee, are we really gonna burn it for $2.4 million bucks? And I say that respectfully, and don't get me wrong, the idea that we're at the bottom of the barrel in something makes the hair on the back of my neck go up. But with that said, a little perspective goes a long way. And if we're gonna burn capital up in Tallahassee, I'm not sure that I want it to be a definition that changes so we can get an extra couple, 200 grand.
Yeah.
I got other places I can burn capital, and I'm not sure that's where my focus would be. I would like to see our completion rates with regard to part-time. I'd like to see that compared then to the other schools that we are in the same league with. And I would like to see what I would consider our same league folks, where they stood in this versus where we would.
Great input, great questions. And I want to say two things. The thing that has us most attentive is the universities are already at $100 million worth of performance funding. So they have walked themselves up because there are more winners than losers, so guess what? There's push to go that way. For the first time ever, though, you actually could pay money back to the state. You know, in the past, every new dollar has been distributed some way so that everybody got something, okay? You didn't ever lose, never went backwards. There's a handful of colleges that are going to go backwards by the end of
But
this
they've been
fiscal
given
year.
an opportunity to get that money back. And I hate to say it, but it's Tallahassee, and everybody's going to whine, and they're going to have their state senator there and their legislator. And at the end of the day, people are going to get 9 chances to not have to turn money back. I'm more concerned about us and our issues. I am less concerned with everybody else. I would like to see where we fit in the matrix. But, you know, as political capital goes and spending it, I'm not so sure that I want to fight over 2% of our budget.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, look how arcane it is. Imagine having a dialogue with your local legislator last week of the session, tweak this little feature versus that little feature. I mean, it doesn't work. We've got to have a big vision of
Well, it's
what
like
we're trying
telling
to
a
do.
vice president, we're gonna make your budget, we're gonna make your this year's bonus based on 2009 and 2015. It's stupid. It's just, we're gonna look at your 2009 numbers. Good luck to you, and hope for the best.
You got it exactly.
And another guy was there.
Yeah.
It wasn't even the same guy.
Yeah.
You know, it was not the same person.
I
I wholeheartedly agree with Ms. Weston. This is, you know, it's ridiculous, to be honest with you. And, you know, Dr. Law, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but we have bigger and more pressing issues like our getting funding for 66th Street, our Gibbs campus and other things. And, you know, for $2.4 million, you know, we know the job that we're doing, and I think the board is well informed on what we're doing all the time and trying to increase and make sure that we're doing this right. And I think we've come a long way since 2009. So, I mean, I just wholeheartedly agree with you. I don't think it's, you know.
Well, and I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but
Yeah.
I'm all about performance funding. I think as far as, you know, we talk about that all the time, running ourselves like a business, but the unintended consequences and the taking your eye off the things that really matter is what worries me.
Sure.
And, you know, we've all seen what happened with the FCATs and what they taught to. And so our plan being to, well, how do we not lose 2% of our budget, as opposed to our plan being
Student success, period. Student
period,
success.
and getting jobs and the best wages. And
Thanks. Imagine when we see the governor and we say, Governor, we get good news. Our students had the highest earnings of any of the college systems. But you know what? They discounted the thing to point. I mean, the governor will think these guys are morons, aren't they? You know, there's just, you know, he's not going to get involved at that level, but he's going to say, congratulations on having the highest salaries for you graduates. And that's the thing we want to do, is keep him aware of that and that sort of stuff. Thanks for the guidance. This one cuts a little close some days. I mean, I'm laying awake at night thinking, please let me be above the line. Please let me be above the line. So we're there. We've got a game plan. We're executing the game plan. I feel good about the game plan. We still feel good about the game plan. As Jesse's going to show you and others, everybody in America who is invested in this has us on their radar screen for the work we're doing. Every single, name Gates, name Jobs for the Future, name Community College Research Center, name, every one of them are tabbing my staff to be part of their initiatives.
Right.
They're funding us to do the work we're doing, and meanwhile, we can kind of get out of the weeds here with our friends in legislature. Thank you very much. That, you were very helpful.
And
this morning. Thank
real
you.
quick, Dr. Law, thank you, Dr. Coraggio. The first time in college, Midtown campus 143 and downtown 229. You're quick. So that, on the other discussion that we had before, between those two, right there, Kevin
It's magic.
and Coraggio, they got us the numbers, but the first time in college numbers for Midtown is 143, and then downtown is 229. So we're up in both places in first time in college.
All right. Thanks, Jesse. Next up, the fiscal year 2015-16 amended budget. Doug, you're up again.
Yes, good morning again.
On.
We'll see what the impact that performance funding had on us. Before we start, I want to introduce Jeanette Hunt. She actually worked with Jamel for several years. She's been with us for about 5 years. And so we had lots of opportunity to get her exposed to the budget. She came to us as a senior accountant. She was later promoted to, we created a compliance function, and she's done a great job. She audits our insurance claims and everything. She's in everything, and which is good. And so anyway, she is going to take over the budget portion of what Jamel did. And Jamel did lots of other things, but the budget was a big chunk, and she's so far done an excellent job. What I'm going to show you, she can vouch for because she actually went to the detail and made the adjustments. And so she can tell you every single thing down to the dollar on just what I'm about to say. Let's look at what happened. When we last talked, we were submitting our proposed budget to the state. We submitted that on July 8th. And we at that point, we were using fund balance to balance the budget because we didn't know what was going to happen with performance funding or anything else at that point. So where we ended up then after that was we received $1 million in general operating dollars that we did not expect, but we received. The 1.2 million simply went back into the base, the first half of the performance funding. And then you'll see there on the fourth line down, the 1.2 million that we received that Jesse referred to in the performance funding. So a total new funds of 2.2 million. Now, the obvious question is that more or less than what we submitted in June? Well, it's less. And let me show you what the impact was. We did initiate the 3% pay increase, which had about a $3.6 million price tag. So when you put the 2.2 together with what we had planned, it was a portion of it is lapsed money, and what we were looking at the time is continued tuition revenue, that we funded the increase and moved forward. What that left us with was the 1.8 million that we needed to take a look at and make a decision how we were going to balance the budget, our amended budget. So what we did, we could have simply, I think you all got a copy of the budget, and it has the strategic objectives in it. We could have simply gone in and cut the 1.8 million of strategic objectives. We talked about that, our executive team got together, and we felt that the majority of those were very necessary for us to continue what we were doing. So instead of cutting the strategic objectives, we went back basically to our operating budgets in each of our divisions, and we made what I thought were some pretty good cuts. This is just a very brief overview. There's a lot more detail. But we were actually able, when we all came back to the table, we had a little over 2 million that we had that we were able to reduce those budgets. We're going to hold on to that for now, simply because, remember, this budget was based on our estimates for going into July 1. And so we've still got a little work to do because of the enrollment in the fall and so on, and we'll be coming back to you with that. But right now, we were able to balance the budget. This is just the expense side, where we had 155.5 million on the expense side, and we have the same estimated on the revenue side. Now, we still have a contingency, we still have the stabilization reserve in there, so I think, we're in pretty good shape, but we've got to go back and revisit a few things as we move forward. On the capital side, I wanted to mention just one other thing. We also, something that we found out after our June meeting was that we received an additional 1.7 in PICO general renovation remodel funding. So that's a big help to us. That will allow us to redistribute some of our capital improvement fees to some other projects and use that 1.7 for deferred maintenance, other kinds of things. This is a summary of what I brought you before, but basically we've got about a 1.1 million balance for contingency. I am guessing that will go up a little bit as we go through the year, that balance. So that's the summary. Any questions?
I do. So we're balanced without using any of our reserves.
As of July 1, we cut enough to balance the budget on. Yes.
Okay.
Good job.
And we didn't give up the strategic initiatives either. We juggled some, we delayed some, we did that, but the activities that you have been focused on with us here are still in place. Some of it was really budgeting stuff. To give you an idea, some of it is really easy finds. Jim Conley's doing a great job in workforce. In years past, we gave him enough cash to run it for a year. So maybe we put we budgeted 100,000 of our dollars into his fund, and then he made it back over the year. He's doing well enough now, we didn't need to put $100,000 in there. We can just count on it coming in and change the way we do the accounting so that he can call down the monies when he needs them. So there were a couple of pockets where we could find some big dollars, and then some where we actually cut some things, tightening the schedule a little bit and doing a few things. We are balanced, and now the next feature is, what are we going to do about the enrollment shortfall? Because it's going to change the tuition revenue projections, okay? So we'll get back to you when we know what we're going to do, but we're starting on our balanced budget.
Any other questions? Take a motion on the budget.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Budget passes. Nice job.
Thank you, and I look forward to
Welcome.
Jeanette coming back.
We're glad to have you. At
Doing
least
Take
here.
up D1, 2, and 3, and then they can just do their
Doing
reports. I
part.
was just going to make a motion for D1, 2, and 3. They know they have to, it's actions, they can do their reports.
Clearwater Library.
And I was just going to make a motion to accept them, and they can do their reports. Is that okay?
Yeah, so the next item up is administrative matters, which Human Resources is the first.
Yeah, and that requires an action as well. So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept D1, 2, and 3. And I'm sorry, 1A, B, 2, and 3B, and we can still have the reports.
Okay, I have a second.
I want to make sure I understand. I do. Yes, you have a second.
So we're still going to do the reports on the health insurance plan,
Yes.
campus safety, and the construction update, but we're just going ahead and moving and accepting the reports.
Mr. Motion Maker,
Yes.
may I amend
Sure.
your motion to accepting our personnel report? And then I'm just not comfortable voting on the health insurance before I
Okay.
hear.
That's fine.
But I would second A.
Okay.
personnel report.
That's fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so personnel reports approved.
No, aye, since I didn't vote.
Health insurance plan update, Dr. Duncan and
Desiree.
Desiree. Yes, very good.
I'm Desiree Warner, and I'm actually going to be presenting today. I have a colleague here. I see Mr. Von Boyce I'd like to invite up. He spends a lot of time with us helping our claimants and managing our benefits, so I'd like to share the podium with him while we present this to you. We are going to provide you with an overview for your consideration to approve a renewal of the health insurance plan. And we're going to start with just sharing a fiscal year look back. Really good news, our overall claim costs are down 1.1%. That is made up of our medical cost as well as inpatient utilization. We have more ambulatory care coming instead of staying overnight. We also have a decrease in the severity of our conditions. So our claims over $50,000 have decreased, and so that all rolls up into our 1.1% reduction in overall claim costs. We continue to see hypertension, hyperlipidemia as our two highest conditions, and that would be high blood pressure and high cholesterol. And we are continuing to focus our wellness and our programming on those areas as they continue to be our two high indicators. We are actually seeing an increase in pharmacy claims, and that's contributed to hepatitis inpatient treatments that our employees have had this past year, but we expect that those are going to decrease, and we're going to see that level off. We are pleased that we have greater utilization in our generic medications, excuse me, from 74% last year to 79% this year, and so we're getting closer to Aetna's book of business, which is 81%, so really good trend in that area as well. So we're going to look back at at the calendar year, and you can see our college spend versus employee spend is pretty level. I think that we're holding steady. We have a slight increase this year for the calendar year, but our employees' costs went down. So overall, we're staying about the same as our trend. And looking at our top conditions from last year to this year, we are, again, holding steady in those conditions with the high cholesterol, high blood pressure, our diabetes, our gastritis. However, this year we have depression that has replaced low back pain. And so we've taken a look at that, and we did have some inpatient cases there that were the cause of those increased costs in that area. We're going to focus again our wellness programming to look at the work-life balance and how we can help with our stress and those types of situations for our employees. But overall, we are seeing the conditions are pretty steady in those areas. We are going to make a recommendation for your consideration. And again, this is agenda item number 61B for your review, that we have no increase in employee premiums, copays, or deductibles for this coming year. That we have no change in carriers as the rates are guaranteed through 2017. And we wanted to note, by staying with Aetna, we actually have an increase in our wellness program by $50,000, so it brings that up to $200,000. So we thought that was a really great benefit that they gave us. Want to report that our insurance reserves are very healthy. We have $8 million, which is about 7 months of claim coverage, and the recommendation on the market is about 3, so we're doing really well in that area. We do, however, expect that in the future we may have some increase in costs. We're noticing that we have some biotech medications that are going to be rolled out on the market, specifically that are going to be for high cholesterol and high blood pressure. So we're probably going to see some increases there. So we're looking at cost controls, and a couple of those are mentioned here for your review. Explore Medicare Part D, insurance supplements for retirees, review formulary for pharmacy, where we may consider some type of a step plan or what types of common medications are covered. And then also consider some self-funding subsidy for any catastrophic events that our employees might have. So that's the brief overview for you. We're happy to answer any questions and then also ask for your consideration for the motion to accept the plan.
Any questions or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm extremely proud of the work we're doing here. In the whole of society where healthcare is swirling in every direction and numbers are moving in all these directions, once again, for the next year, we've locked in exactly what we have for our employees. No change in their out-of-pocket, no change in the deductibility. It's a solid, quality plan. I think that, Doug and his team are doing a fantastic job with it. Financially, it's as sound as you could want it to be, so thank you for your support. But what happens is when you approve it today, the open enrollment period starts next month or the end of next month, so we've got to lock in some of those details.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we accept the health plan as reported here today.
Any second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, Mr. Bartow, campus safety and security update.
Dr. Law, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Dan Bartow. I'm the Director of Security, Risk Management, and Safety Operations here at the college. The purpose of today's presentation is really to provide you a snapshot of where the college is from a safety and security standpoint, and also provide you some information on where we plan to be in the future and where we're going this year. What you're going to see is that the college has a very safe working and studious environment. The officers have a pretty good list of extensive training. They have a wealth of professional experience as well. And you'll see that there's a proactive plan for the future as far as how to get information and training out to the various sites. First up are our 2014 clearly reportable crime statistics. As you can see, our numbers are always routinely low. This information is also pretty much the same from year to year to year. On our website, we have to show the prior 3 years clearly reportable crime stats. This will be the upcoming year that's reported. Please note it's for 2014. So the data tends to bear out that we have a very safe work environment. We recently completed an officer training certification program. It consisted of 40 hours. Before we started the program, I talked with Vice President Tondra Williams, all of the site provosts, all of the associate provosts, and sorted others, as far as getting their input into what's needed, what do they think would make important components of it. It comes down to these 5 basic 8-hour chunks. We dealt with mission support. What's our basic job? What are we trying to do, and how do we do it? It also had legal updates as a component of it. Our own legal counsel presented extensively on Title IX, VAWA, and other federal legislations. We had representatives from the state attorneys there to provide guidance on job-related issues. Day 2 covered incident response, typical incident response on the college. What do we do? How do we do it? And how do we get there better? As well as the big ticket items, critical emergency response. Specifically, we had a rep, Sergeant Trill from Tarpon PD, come in and gave a very dynamic class on incident response. We had our own in-house experts come in and discuss student issues and officer safety. All of the officers that went through this program went through the All-State Academy. We had some time on the mats, which for a 54-year-old guy who hasn't been on the mats in a while was a joyous experience. And then the last day in the classroom was professionalism, perception and communication. Dr. Fronrath headed that up, and it was a very lively discussion. Summed it up with 8 hours of basic first aid, life safety, and fire safety. From an experiential level, the department, this was a quick average of what we have. We have 746 years of total professional experience. That's largely law enforcement, but also included in that is military and campus security experience. All of our regional supervisors, our senior supervisors that are in charge of multiple campuses, have a minimum of 10 years experience with the college. The senior officers, which in effect work as shift supervisors, have 21 years of professional experience. And again, a lot of that is college security, a lot of it is law enforcement and military. Officers have an average of 18 years experience. So for the future developments, what is it? In our discussions for developing this plan and moving forward, it was really pointed out you could be doing all these nice things, but if no one knows about it, you're not really doing the college or the department any justice. So to that end, we've had the first of a blue and white article that pinpointed and highlighted our training efforts. We've had departmental meetings at all the sites with the provosts and associate provosts. We plan on having site question and answer periods with students and with staff and faculty. And we're hoping to enhance our departmental website just to make information flow to those that want it a little easier. Again, I've reached out with all of the provosts and the associate provosts. Hopefully we can get these meetings going through the months of September and October for the lunch and learns. We were also starting to meet with student government at their request and go over training and Q&As. And it's also that time where we work with the local law enforcement and do tactical and SWAT exercises at each of the sites with all of the various law enforcement agencies, and we work through the site administration and Dr. Law and get those approved. On another related topic, we recently sent two officers through a train-to-trainer class, and ALICE, the acronym is up there. It's Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. It's meant to serve as a teaching tool and a cohort there with our shots fired video for those staff, faculty, students that are interested in more intensive training. 2 officers are trained to go to the different sites when requested. We've already set up trainings at our All College Day. They'll be providing it there. And to that training end, Dr. Williams and I are preliminarily hoping to teach classroom management and incident de-escalation skills at All College Day as well. In closing, the certification training process, the 40-hour class was such a success with all the officers and everyone that participated in it. We're underway to kind of develop an advanced track as well for those that have been in the college and know it, where can we assist them in doing the job better. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have, comments.
Any questions?
Yes, let me, thank you, Mr. Bartow. Let me start out by saying, Mr. Bartow, you have the most professional and most diverse staff that I've seen on around our campuses, and thank you for the job you do. And all the trainings, I don't want to assume. So in the professionalism and perception and communication, is that by any chance diversity amongst, does that include the diversity piece for each one of your staff members?
We had a very good 4-hour chunk of training with, the name escapes me.
It's okay.
Dr. Tonkiel, Buster.
Oh, yeah, Buster
He came in, he works through the All-State Center, and it was a very engaging session that touched on those topics as well.
I just wanted to make sure, because with everything going on in law enforcement, your staff is always, every campus I go to, they're professional, and they do a very good job. I just want to make sure with everything that's going on that we have the best trained folks as well on our campuses. And I know you take it seriously, so.
Thank you.
What's the frequency that you guys do, like your SWAT exercises or your active shooter exercises?
Typically yearly, because they're pretty intensive. That doesn't mean that law enforcement staff doesn't meet with the administrators on a smaller scale to be familiar. It was a real eye-opener with the tactical teams when you see some of the size of the buildings, district office, Epitech, Gibbs with the number of buildings. Clearing out any of those big ones takes a while. So for them to take it serious and get their training together, we usually do walkthroughs with one exercise yearly. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Mr.
There was
Chair.
a motion on that, Dan, because the
motion.
Clery Act is, we submit it to the state, right?
We
Was that an
submit that
action
to the
item?
feds yearly by October.
No, I'm sorry, that was just presentation. Okay,
So,
good.
that was
enough.
just
All right,
presentation,
thanks. Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
All right, thanks. Next item up, update or discussion on the Clearwater Joint Use Library, Dr. Vitito, and the Clearwater campus, Mr. Wachter.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Law. I'm Jim Wagner with your Facilities Department, along with Dr. Stan Vitito, Provost of the Clearwater campus. Also with us this morning are Josh Baumstein, President of Creative Contractors, and Mr. Leo Arroyo, Principal Architect, Candidate Belsky and Arroyo Architects, along with Mrs. Kim Wolf, Director of our Clearwater Library. Our purpose this morning is threefold. First of all, to give you an overview of the schematic plans to date for the library project. Dr. Vitito will begin that in just a moment. Secondly, to discuss the next steps, the budget, and the schedule moving forward, and thirdly, to ask for your approval of the agreements as they exist today, along with these schematic drawings so that we can continue to make progress on the project. I'll turn it over to Dr. Vidito for the overview of the schematic.
Dr. Law, board members, good morning. The first slide that you see, I'll help you get oriented there a little bit. The top of the slide is north, and Drew Street is running left to right, east to west on the slide. Old Coachman to the right-hand side. And you see our existing library, the existing administration building. What you're going to see on the next slide is that the proposed site for the new library will be just north of the existing library. So you can see now the two-story, 42,000 gross square foot library, proposed library in front of the existing library, and kind of an expanded retention pond up there. The current retention pond is really dry for most of the year and becomes pretty weedy and unattractive. So what we're proposing is a much more attractive wet pond.
Okay.
Do we have money in the budget for a water feature?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. I'm big on water features.
One of the things you'll notice, of course, right away is that the administration building is gone, and in place of that is a parking lot. What enables us to do that, to replace a 50-year-old administration building, is that in our current situation, our learning support, our tutoring centers are divided. We have part of that in the existing library, and part of that is in the language arts building. And although it's a nice facility, it's really not the best situation for students to have the writing tutoring, which takes place in the library and is a big chunk of what we do, and then science and math in a separate building. So the new library will allow us to consolidate those so that all of the tutoring, learning support, library instruction, and so on will take place in one building. But that leaves a space in the language arts building that's fairly large. And what we will do is move our registration and advising area to that space in the Learning Support Commons, what used to be the Learning Support Commons in Language Arts. The other thing that makes that possible is that our current administration building is really somewhat underutilized. It was built 50 years ago. The back half of that building was built when we had a very large business office where we were dispensing paper checks and taking a lot of payment in cash. Most of that's done online now. Our business office staff is involved in residency, accepting transcripts, those kind of operations. In addition, the back half of the building consists of a lot of separate offices because that's the way we did registration at that time. We now have brought it together in a much more open spot in the front of the building. So we have some unused space there in the administration building, and that'll allow us to consolidate those features in the language arts. This is the first floor plan, proposed plan of this joint use library, and it's coded so that the yellow or kind of slate looking color at the top is all the city libraries use. The blue area at the bottom is the college, and the green area is the common space. That's a little bit misleading. I get caught up in that myself sometimes because, of course, to a patron coming in the library, this isn't going to look like two separate libraries. It's going to look like one large open floor, and both the students and non-students will have the advantage of two collections. And so instead of a 30 or 40,000 volume collection that the city has or that St. Pete College has, they'll now have 60 or 70,000 volumes that they can peruse. We think we've achieved some efficiencies there, but from my standpoint, I think that one of the most important things that we achieve with this joint use library is that we will now have more of the community on the Clearwater campus. We have 35 or 40 different entities right now that have regular meetings, everything from Mothers Against Drunk Driving to the Rotary East Club to town hall meetings to community band and so on that meet on the Clearwater campus. The East Library also has a lot of community functions. Bringing those together makes the Clearwater campus something of a place to convene the community. And I think we'll have young people coming to the library that will eventually be our students. They'll get a chance to be on a college campus. They'll have the opportunity to interact with college students. So I think it's a win-win for everyone. To that end, you'll notice in the lower right-hand corner, and this also kind of helps give you a little perspective on the scale of this library. Many of you have been in ES 104, of course. It's the building where we have the 4 big screens in one room. We hold our board meetings and things there sometimes. That room in the lower right-hand corner similarly will hold 100 people, and it's a joint shared meeting room. It works out very well. The city will have programs, for example, in the summer, children's reading programs and that kind of thing, where they might utilize that. But it gives us the advantage of having an additional place for community meetings and college meetings on the first floor. Move to the second floor. The second floor is primarily SPC. We do have the legal collection on the second floor, and we're looking at a corner of that to be a cultural center. We will see the general public up there, but most of our tutoring functions will take place there. There's a large enclosed area that'll be a classroom. It's not a hard enclosure. It has kind of a, well, architect has a way of enclosing it without making it look like it's separated, so we keep the open field. But we'll use that for career presentations, orientations, library instruction, and so on. We move to the elevation. This is a view that you would see from Drew Street under this proposed diagram. The library will be much closer to Drew Street, and then if we modify that water feature so that the berm between the street and the campus is a little bit lower, I think you're going to see a much more prominent building than we have right now. With that, Jim has a timeline he's going to share with you.
Thank you. This is a rough timeline of what we plan to achieve. Our next step is to go to the Clearwater City Council on October 12th for a working session. The final agreements will be ready in a few months, at which point we'll go back to the City Council and to Dr. Law for final approval and execution of those agreements. But we're going to go to the City Council for a working session on October 12th. They have not seen these plans, so it's important that we get their support and continue to move forward from there. After which Leo will begin his construction drawings from the schematic phase, develop into construction drawings, which will take several months. We'll bring a GMP back to this board in the spring along with those construction drawings. About a 1-year construction period, finish in the spring of 17, after which we'll have a phased move-in. We'll move into the library first so that we can demolish those 2 buildings that were referred to. Develop the parking spaces needed for the city, and then as soon as the parking is available, move the city in the fall of 2017. With our schematic pricing done with creative good work, we have a budget of $15 million, of which the college's share is 9.1. The city's share is 5.9. Finally, the action item is to approve the schematic designs and the 2 agreements, the design and construction agreement as well as the operations agreement, so that we can continue to get them finished up, executed, and move forward. Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Wachter, anything of note or interest in any of those agreements that we need to know about?
No, what those agreements are right now is the last item that will feed itself into those documents are what we call the facilities use list. It's a space-by-space delineation of every single room, and Leo is tweaking those final designs. As soon as that document is populated, we will assign the appropriate shares, and so right now those agreements have blanks in them. We'll plug them in, and this is what they're going to bear out. It all feeds into the budget.
We have been working very closely with the City of Clearwater.
We've had multiple meetings.
And we're just down to putting the final number in. We have every reason to believe they're going to be okay with it. I had occasion to be with Mayor Kritikos at a recent event. He was very pleased about the work that's been done. There's a little bit of, they're an elected board, we're an appointed board, who sees it first, who sees it second, everything else. Everybody's just got to take a deep breath to move this thing forward, okay? And I think Jim and Stan have done a phenomenal job of getting this thing hammered into the budget that's available with a game plan that's really good. I certainly support it, and you can see, Mr. Chairman. The operating agreements, we know how to do this. We've got 3 or 4 of them around. In the end, you sit down, it's a long day to get it all worked out. Right. But there's no deal breaker in there as best we can tell.
Thank you.
All right, take a
I
motion.
make a motion that we accept the project for the Clearwater Library and the agreements as reported.
Second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Good, thanks, Jim.
A round of applause. This
Pretty
is a
big.
bucket list item.
Jeez.
I understand we're going to defer the academic matters.
No one can be deferred.
Next item up is the consent agenda. There's no old business. I'll take a motion on the remaining items on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion that we accept the entire consent agenda as printed in the,
Any discussion?
real quickly, I saw on here that there was something about JWB. Dr. Law, did we hear anything yet? I know Ms. Grid had, is there a quick, can we get a quick report?
In 2 cases, we are under some sort, we have not heard anything
Okay, all right,
officially,
okay.
okay? Stay tuned, though, but as the Catholics would say, watch for the white smoke.
All right, okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda passes. There are, under tab 8, all the informational reports on contract items and purchasing. No items under item 9. Item number 10, proposed changes to the Board of Trustees Rules Manual.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this came about after our discussion regarding how the appropriation was being handled. So one is a fiduciary matter. We added, I think, the guidance from the board was to add that it was my job to present a legislative package to the board each year, and you now have that. We added it to the board profile of duties and responsibilities of the president, okay? So
Yeah.
that's a technical report in compliance with you. And then I have included in item 11A, the overview of those areas we would be working on for next year. It's a work in progress, so we haven't seen the legislative package. As best we sit here today, we think these are the items that will be in front of us. I've tried to do number 6. I think with enough lead time, we can avoid the awkwardness that came with that community grant.
Sure.
I
No,
think
I
we
get it.
worked through all the problems with that, but I don't want to mislead you. It hadn't gone away. We'll be okay with that, I think. The other one that I want to say out loud, the concealed carry is not going away.
No, it's coming back.
And it's coming back, and it's going to land on one of our board meetings, whether we schedule it or somebody else schedules it. There were meetings as late as this week on what that's going to look like or whatnot. We have been holding the ground that we are in full compliance with the existing law. For some of the other viewpoints, that's not enough. Students need to be able to bring their concealed weapon legally into a classroom or other. That's currently not allowed by law. So what I'm trying not to do is attract all the attention to us on this issue, because it never goes away. Let me say my piece, and then certainly we'll schedule it if we need to. I think the current situation works just fine. I think you see the safety and security. I'm not worried about individual security. I'm not sure that we get a big benefit by bringing yet more guns into the classroom or to other environments, okay? It has nothing to do with Second Amendment or whatnot. You simply, you know, what works and what doesn't work. We'd be delighted if we could just keep what we have. Others don't quite see it that way. We'll keep you informed. We're not going to be able to avoid it this year, is my guess. Okay?
Ms. Suzanne, may I have a summary of what the current law is on that? That's applicable. Not now. Just can you shoot me an email? I didn't mean like, hey, you know. No. But can you shoot me an email as to what the current law is?
Certainly.
Thank you.
The only thing, Dr. Law, I would add is that one of our legislative priorities, if the board would approve it, is to get with Senator Negron on remediation. Is that on there?
Right.
I'm reading it, but I
but
don't-
it's going to come back.
Yeah, and so I'd like us to take a lead on that, because we really had that figured out. And it's hurting our students,
Yeah.
to be very honest with you. They can't
Sorry, I didn't get what you
Well,
brought
the
on.
state took away the remediation portion for us to remediate it at all. And it's really killing us at the front door with some students. And I'd like to revisit the formula that we had come up with that was working for some time, for like, I think 2 or 3 years. And then they took that off the table. So if that could be, if the board would indulge me in that and supporting us trying to talk to Senator Negron, which is his baby, to be honest with you.
Right.
It's his decision in terms of how we remediate and if we can remediate it to some extent, if we could make that one of our legislative priorities.
I'd be happy to add that.
I think it hurts our minority students the most, to be very honest with you.
And again, we're bringing the energy to that. The
Yep.
signal from the state was, leave it alone.
Yeah.
Okay, but I don't think that's a good position to be in. It's really hurting students, the situation we find ourselves in.
I think you're right, and I also, but the conversations that I've had with him is that St. Pete College has been a leader in figuring these things out, and I think that he would like to hear from us. That's not saying that he's going to change it, but I think we should take the opportunity, since he's open-minded enough to say that he sees us as a leader in figuring these issues out, to see if he would at least be amenable to a meeting and talking about it, and maybe making some change that we suggest to him.
Good. I will add that and resubmit
Currently,
this.
what are we're talking about metrics, things like that. What are we proposing? Or
Well-
what are our thoughts?
Currently, we're going to take care of our own business and stay on the plan we're on, okay? Anything else is going to be to resurrect some of the other metrics that were used. I mean, technically, all we're going to do is play the appropriations game. I don't think programmatically there's any part to it, and it's in the normal range of what presidents do, arm wrestling for the appropriations process. There's a new chancellor. We're not making much progress on that front, but that's the only game in town. They're already giving ground. They're not going to be able to stay on the ground they're on, so it will change, okay?
As in, so the position of no remediation, period.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about performance funding. No remediation. I don't think they're prepared to go back into that. It was a pretty bruising battle that they had, and they're not prepared to go back into that. They want to leave us to our own devices. I just think because we had earned everybody's respect on that issue, we have the ability to go sit with somebody who sees it a little differently from us. And we ought to use that opening for that to happen.
One of the reasons is because I think that he was really interested in how we were not having students in remediation for an entire semester.
Right.
Whereas everybody else usually put students in remediation for an entire semester. So, and we were focusing on where they did not do well on the entrance exam, and kind of, I think it was like an 8 or 9 week period, and then, or a 6 week period or something like that, and then they were able to go into a regular course after taking the test over. He was very interested in that piece when I was talking to him about it, because everybody else said, okay, this is a class, so you got to go to this class for the first semester, and he thought that was a waste of funding for the state.
His opposition was people never get out of remediation.
Yeah, they never really get out.
Once you're assigned to remediation, the throughput is so low, nothing good happens. And he's right. We were changing the metric, on our own efforts, and had some success with that. And then they changed how we could even, as you know, we could no longer assess students at the front door. I just was on, 2 weeks ago, I was on a national webinar on this issue. 500 people nationwide signed on to the webinar on how we process people at the front door to get them through remediation faster. So we still have some clout in that discussion if we can use it. So happy to add that. Baccalaureate degree is going to come back. You keep hearing that. Our good friend Senator Latvala is doing everything humanly possible to get that issue in a right place. It's not there yet because of some inside baseball there. And the rest is pretty straightforward. You see some things that you've seen before. The Sim Center was one of our PICO projects. I'd like to get some operating dollars if we can get something going there, and then the funding for the ad building, get the planning money on that.
Mr. Chair, I would support adding a number 7 or so to
Thank you.
work with do our best to work with Senator Negron and his office in maybe softening his position on remediation.
We don't need to motion that.
No.
We just need to add to the list.
We'll do it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, anything else on your report?
No, thank you very much.
All right, very good. Our next meeting date, October the 13th at the Epicenter. And
Before we leave, Mr. Chair, I have one final thing. I have to do this. Sue Song, can you come up, please? This lady, Dr. Law, should get a gold medal. I don't know what we can do, but literally, this lady worked so many hours that we couldn't pay her, and she took them as volunteer hours to get this building open. And I would be very upset if I didn't say this about her, but thank you so much. I would pass by here at 10 o'clock at night. She'd still be here trying to get issues resolved for opening and all kinds of things. But you should be commended. Thank you so much for everything you did to get this place open. And she won't speak to me anymore because she told me not to do that to her, but I had to do it.
all right, we're adjourned.
Did we need to do anything on the manual? 10, public hearing, responsibility and authority? Okay. Deborah, what's her name?
The lady that was just
Yeah.
Sue Song, I think it's S-O-N-G.
Okay, I'll get it.
S-O-N-G.